let's take a look at these live pictures now before we go to SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. The pictures that you will see on your screen now are live visuals in Gaza. As you can see, thousands waiting for the release of those hostages. Remember, this is the second tranche that we will see being released here this morning, and you can see the Red Cross is also on standby there. Of course, treatment and some other agencies also on standby to assure that this process goes ahead smoothly. Of course, the ceasefire, which kicked in on Sunday last week, still in effect. This is the second phase of the agreement or the deal that we've seen, the release of these soldiers. Let's bring in now SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, thank you very much indeed for your time. So the ceasefire is holding. We'll also put those pictures on screen if we can, just to show you what is taking place as we're in conversation with SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. So the ceasefire is holding, Sophie, since the start. We've seen the desperation and people returning to their homes, having to bury their loved ones, bodies decomposed. Talk us through what we've witnessed thus far.
Yes, you are correct. This morning, as you pointed out, those are people and Qassam fighters that is part of the Hamas group who are waiting for Hamas leadership or those who are given responsibility to hand over the 4 soldiers, female soldiers, Israeli soldiers, to the Red Cross. And from the Red Cross, they will be taken to this military base that you see in the southern border. As you can see, the helicopter hovering there, and it will land there, and you can see they are already waiting. Then they will be taken with this helicopter to Israel, in Tel Aviv, at a hospital where they will go through medical check-up and perhaps debrief, and then be handed over to their families. As soon as that has happened and these hostages are here at this military base, at the prison in Israel, then the process will start where 200 Palestinians will be released from prison. And you know that you will see the buses that will take them. And we know that from 5 a.m. this morning, already Red Cross went into prison to go and check and debrief those who will be released today. And most of them being women and children. And therefore, the release has started. I think at this moment, because it's gonna perhaps happen, we'll start seeing those pictures of the Israeli soldiers around 11 or 12 or any minute from now. I think now Hamas is on its way with these prisoners, because you know that we don't even know where they were kept, and some of them, it's quite far, so they still have to drive. And as soon as they arrive at that square in Gaza, this square in Gaza, you'll see them being handed over to Red Cross, and that's the end of Hamas. Now the Red Cross will then drive to where they are going to hand them over to Israeli authorities or defense force. So Hamas and Israel officials, they don't meet. The Red Cross is a mediator at this moment in terms of ensuring that that exchange does happen.
For those who may not understand, Sophie, of course, we did say this is the second phase. Hamas, of course, releasing the names of those 4 women believed who are soldiers. Talk us through. This would equate to the release of more than 100 Palestinians, isn't it? Just talk us through that breakdown. So the release of 1 would mean the release of
30.
All right. Talk us through that.
Yes. It's actually, this is still first phase, but it is overlapping to second phase, because negotiations have started to look at the implementation of the second phase. Now, because it is 4 prisoners and it's 1 hostage and then 30 Palestinians. So because this time around it's 4 women soldiers who are released, it's going to be times 4. 30 times 4. and therefore you will have a bigger number this time around. They may even be generous and take it to 200, just a round figure. Yeah. In the same way, Hamas decided that it's not going to be 3, but it will be 4. Yeah. And therefore, those are the numbers. But then the negotiations are currently underway. How are you going to implement a second phase? The second phase entails continuation of release of prisoners or people who were taken to Israeli jail, the Palestinians, but also the release of the hostages. But that would include the bodies of hostages who died. We know that some have passed on, but the families, we don't know. There's no confirmation who has passed on. So that will include those who are still alive and those who passed on. And I think that is going to be a quite traumatic experience on both sides, when the release from both sides includes release of those who have passed on, because there are those who have passed on in prison as well.
Yeah. As you indicated, of course, that second phase, including the release of the bodies. I mean, just talk to us about what happens next. And very interestingly, looking at commentary from around the world about whether the ceasefire agreement would stand, could we say thus far both sides seem to be holding to this agreement? We're seeing it now heading into the second phase. We're seeing the release of these women soldiers today. We will see in the second phase the release of the bodies. Would you say so far so good, or is it still too early to say we might see some kind of sustainability to this agreement, which has been, I guess, so hard fought for?
I think, Griselda, for now, the ceasefire is holding. You'd recall last week, this time around, there was confusion in terms of release, because Israel was saying, we are not going to stop fighting because you haven't released the names. Right. But this time around, by yesterday already, we knew who is going to be released, and their pictures are already there in the public domain. And therefore, you can see there's a bit of a better coordination and sticking to the agreement. However, what has since happened, the fighting now, it's not in Gaza anymore. There are now, Israel is now launching attacks in the West Bank, which is not part of the agreement. And therefore, they will argue that we are repelling perhaps the security threat for us in the West Bank, and this is not part of Gaza agreement. The same with settlements, where they've taken those settlements, and it's unlawful by international law. There are more attacks and more people are dying. And therefore, in reality, the Palestinians are still dying, even as we speak now, to the implementation of this ceasefire. As you can see now that this is about to happen any minute, therefore. We're just waiting to see that car or the minibus that they use, Hamas, to bring them here at this square, and then we'll see them getting into the Red Cross transport that will take them to the border. And we saw earlier on at the border in the south, the Israel Defense Force officials, including the medical team, is already waiting.